I'm Vanessa, fellow human of the world who likes to draw things, and today is a very special day because I'm drawing frogs. Yeah, I'm excited about today. So, one of my favorite plushie manufacturers, Fluffnest, has recently added a new froggy to their family of plushies. Ready for the reveal? There goes my Tamagotchi. This is Egg, and he's a toad! So, this little guy is Fluffnest's newest froggy edition. Very cute, very round, very egg. And I thought, what better way to welcome him to my family, Fluffnest family, and the world as a greater place to be, but to make a cute little illustration starring this guy. So, let me walk you through what I have planned. Before we get into the drawing part, I want to introduce the other froggies who will be appearing in this illustration alongside Egg. This is Bean, the original Fluffnest frog. Now he's very round and has these slit eyes, which I think give him so much character. I actually don't have any of his traditional, original form. I only have, this is special edition snowflake version, and I also have a Sakura version, the petals on the bum, so cute. But also I have him in his very stylish pumpkin outfit, and this is more of what his coloring is going to be in the illustration, this light pistachio green against the white belly of his underside. He actually comes in a mega form, really big. I really want it, but also I have to be an adult and not spend all of my money on toys and still have enough saved up for bills and such. Very sad. And here we have Ham, the flat frog. Yeah, I really like this guy. Super fun to hug. Also, these eyes are just, I just think they're so hilarious. He just looks so derpy. He also comes in mega form. Yeah, this one I did get. Alright, design time. So this is my mock-up of the Fluffnest frog Introduce Egg to the Family artwork piece. We'll have Egg, our star, sort of in the focal point area, and then our two veteran froggies, Ham and Bean, will be kind of perched above, like looking down at him. Are you okay to be in our froggy family? And as I was going through this, I found myself interested with C shapes, like the letter C in the alphabet, C. And I've been learning about, in composition, the effect of repeating shapes. So the main shape of the composition is a C, but I'm also going to be looking for every opportunity as I'm going through this illustration to make the smaller shapes, the internal shapes like this fungi and these plants in the background. I want them all to kind of have that C shape to them. Colors, For colors, we're going to keep it pretty neutral. It's a forest composition, so it's going to be a lot of greens and browns, yellows probably as well. And I've been thinking about how to add dimension to this because I don't want to go overboard with details and a lot of rendering, but I also don't want this to look flat. So I've set the parameter for myself that there's going to be one layer of shapes that have an outline drawn to them, and those will be our foreground shapes. And then behind that, we're going to have a layer where nothing is outlined, and that's going to make the objects appear more further away, more in the distance. So I think if I can stick to that, that'll be a really easy way to add some dimension to this piece without going overboard with details. So we're going to keep all of that in mind and go into the finished illustration now. Before we get into the drawing, I have one more point to make. The plant that's in my concept sketch, actually one of the houseplants I have at home. This is the staghorn fern, and I think this is a really cool plant. Maybe it's not super eye-catching compared to many other houseplant varieties, but honestly, this guy has a lot of character. Mine is still a bit young, but once they get more mature, you might see this plant mounted on something like a piece of wood. I've seen many people online who just have them growing on like almost a plank, and they're, coming out of the wall and not growing vertically at all. And in the wild, these guys kind of just hop onto other plants and trees, and they're not in the soil at all. They're just catching on a ride on somebody else. This guy has 2 sets of fronds. These tall ones are the antler fronds, and they're shaped like antlers, and that's where its name comes from, staghorn. And these down here are the shield fronds, and their job is to protect the roots from the harsher rays of the sun. So yeah, this guy's gonna be appearing alongside our froggy friends, and I'm just really glad that I got to share some plants with you today. The first thing I want to do is to just make some quick adjustments to my thumbnail sketch. I'm trying to save time, so I'm switching over to my liquify tool, and now I'm just gonna push these shapes around until I'm happy with the placement. Now that I'm happy with the placement of the objects, I'm doing a first pass at the sketch. I think Ham is looking super cute up there on the fungi. Egg is getting there. I can see it, but it's a little messier right now. I think it's going to come together once we clean it up a bit. Bean, though, I'm struggling a little bit with the placement of this froggy. I don't think it looks super natural as it is, and I just feel like he would roll right off the edge of that fern if he was sitting there like this, so I think we're gonna go back to this guy and try to resketch the positioning. Doing the finished line art is always my least favorite part of any drawing I'm working on. I just feel like your line art can really make or break your whole drawing, and a lot of the times for me it feels like the line art has broken my drawing. Luckily, with digital art, you can just Control-Z all your mistakes away. But to screw up your line art on a physical piece of paper, it's just the saddest feeling in the world. Back when I first started to really try to improve my artistic skills, I was watching a lot of very basic tutorials on just good techniques to practice. And a lot of the emphasis here was on line technique and just building up your muscle memory for drawing lines. Many of the exercises I did were just fill a whole page with straight lines and curved lines and C shapes, S shapes, circles, spirals, hatching, just everything to build up confidence in my ability to draw lines. Honestly, when I first started doing these exercises, they felt like a waste of my time. Like, I know I didn't go to art school, but I think I've grown my skills pretty far as just a hobbyist, and I can draw lines, no problem. I can skip this step. It wasn't until after I started practicing these exercises and repeating these motions that I then saw a difference in my line art. My strokes felt more confident, and I was getting the shapes in less time than I had been before, and I really think this is a result of just practicing these movements over and over to build up that muscle memory. So if you've struggled with line art like I have, I'd really recommend trying out some of these practice exercises. It may seem simple and not that exciting, and like me, you might think, I know how to draw lines already, I don't need to do this. But with anything, practice makes perfect, and I can speak for myself and say, doing this has helped me to improve my line art technique, and I believe that the same could be true for you as well. I gotta say, I love the fingers on these guys. It's just such a cute detail. I'm obsessed with the fingers. I love that Ham has these big, curious eyes compared to Egg and Bean. Don't get me wrong, I love the slit eyes too. I think it gives such a different expression. Like, I look at these guys and I think that they're almost zoned out. like they're sitting here in the forest, but they're kind of lost up in their heads, not quite present in the moment. It's such a nice contrast to Ham, who has these big round pupils, just he's present in the moment. And now you can see the design I landed on for Bean. I pushed him from being a head-on view to more of a 3/4 view where you can see his side body. I'm brushing in some texture on the tree stump just to make it a little more interesting. Now I'm rendering out some of the details on Egg. I have a yellow light source, so I feel like using purple, the complement to yellow, would add some nice contrast in Egg. I've really been enjoying using textured brushes lately. I don't know, it just feels like it's a little less pressure to get things perfect. I'm beginning to feel like the fungi I added to this birch tree stump are just really massive in comparison. My logic brain is telling me that this just couldn't exist, but also I don't think it's so much of a problem that I need to change it. And now I'm wondering how the heck Ham managed to climb himself up onto this not so little fungi. I mean, he's a frog. He's good at jumping, but also just the body proportions make me question if he could physically launch himself up there. Let me know in the comments. Can he get himself up there or not? What do you think? Now I'm using a large brush to block in the shapes, and I'll slowly refine things using a smaller and smaller brush to get the details just right. The leaves of the staghorn fern are quite textured in person, and I've really been looking forward to trying to render this. My grainy chalk brush has been wonderful for capturing this texture. I'm really excited about how this is coming out. The fungi, I think I started the coloring a little too vivid from the start, so I ended up pushing it more towards neutral so that it wouldn't draw too much attention away from our froggy friends. I wanted to make the cut open part of this birch tree as realistic as I could, so I looked up some references ahead of time so that I could get the colors and the hues just right. So I'm just throwing in some simple rendering, putting in some rings to indicate that this tree has some age to it. There goes my Tamagotchi. And just some lights and shadows to bring out the shape a little more. The flower, I decided to make it a trout lily, and I didn't know about these flowers ahead of time, but I ended up looking up some facts as I was going through the project because I just love plants. The leaves have this really cool brownish, purplish, speckly pattern to them, and that is similar to the pattern on a trout's back, and that's where the name comes from. I know I said I was going to leave the background layer relatively alone, just shapes of the plants with no outlines. I think it could be a little more interesting though, and a quick way to do this is just to put a simple gradient over the top of this to give the colors a little bit of variation. I'm feeling like I want to add just a bit of texture to these froggies. So what I'm trying to do is to take this watercolor brush, and I'm picking colors that are relatively in the range of what's already there, and I'm just trying to brush in some spots of texture so that there's just a bit more intrigue to these guys. So I'm kind of changing my mind about the colors in the rendering for Egg. I was initially really excited about the purple, but now that everything is mostly done, there's not any other purple in the piece, so it kind of feels out of place that there's just this little bit of purple shadow on Egg. So instead, I'm trying to take reds and greens because those are quite prevalent in the illustration, and I'm just layering them on top of each other to get shades of brown with little bits of variation, and I think that that's going to work much better for this piece. For finishing touches, I just want to pull out the shadows here and there to make things pop a little more. Egg needs a shadow under him so that he looks like he's sitting there on the grass. And now I want to brush in some grass texture over the block that I've got. So I'm pulling out my pen tool and I'm picking various shades of green, brushing in lighter strands where the light is hitting already and darker strands in our shadowed areas. This background is looking a little flat to me though, so I'm just gonna pull out that same watercolor brush that I used to do the texture on the frogs, and I'm gonna brush in some darker areas and lighter areas here and there to make things a little more varied. Waking up the following morning, I felt like I wanted to adjust the colors just a little bit. I thought that bringing out more of the yellow hues would give this illustration more of the feeling I was going for. So to do that, I'm adding a filter layer on top of my layer stack, and one by one, I'm adjusting the color values in the highlights, midtones, and shadows until I'm happy with the balance. And now I feel like I can finally call this illustration complete. Alright, let's wrap this video up. Maybe my camera will stay focused for this one. Fingers crossed. I really love how this illustration turned out. I was honestly surprised at how quickly it seemed to go. I'm so used to my drawings nowadays taking me a million years because I just have so many little details planned in there, and as I'm going through it, I'm constantly changing things because I'm trying to get my art to match up to what that vision in my head is. But with this one, it really helped to have the boundaries put in place ahead of time and the rules as to the stylistic elements I wanted to use. Yeah, it was like I picked out everything ahead of time, and then I didn't have to think so much as I was going through it. I just kind of had to stick to what that plan was that I said at the start, and that seemed to help me. I'm really glad I swapped out the purple shadows on Egg for more of a green and red into brown neutral color palette. I think it works a lot better with the rest of the piece. It's always my first instinct to try and make shadows purple. I don't know why, but I always want to do that, but it doesn't always work with every piece. I like that these frogs all ended up with their own distinctive features. I kind of imagine that they have their own unique personalities, and I'm glad that their visual features are distinct enough that they're significantly different from one another. Sometimes when I'm drawing frogs, I'm a little worried that the shapes are too similar and that everything is kind of turning into the same shape, so I'm glad that this didn't happen in this case. The fingers, oh, I love the fingers, they're so cute. The fern, I like how the texture turned out. It really feels convincing of the texture of my plant at home. I wanted to post a challenge right at the end. Count up all the C's, let's find them all. But then I was trying to do it myself and it was like, oh, I can't find all the C's, there's too many. I feel happy when I look at this, and that's honestly what I want to feel from most of my drawings. So I hope that my froggies are making you happy today too. If you liked my art today, maybe you could give me a like and subscribe. Please, it's just a like and subscribe, I'm not asking for much. And if you want to see more of my art, you can check out my social media, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!